think that you can pick up from talking to me that I'm not on a different level, okay? These are pretty simple, basic tools. And so nobody out there is listening to him and saying, God darn, he's just using words and he's just so much smarter than me, so I'm not gonna become worth $5 billion. That book is bullshit, okay? He's just naturally smarter than me. I think you can see that I'm no smarter than anybody else in this room. I just use certain little basic tools to be successful every day. Take the word no out of your vocabulary. Worry about your customer, no spare customers. Use the 95-5 rule. Separate yourself from everybody else. Be the bull at whatever you do. You want to be the bull. And I don't care if you're in the mail room or if you're the person behind that camera, that I'm going to be better than anybody else with that camera, and I'm going to be the best mail carrier and the person who comes up and is the most organized and does it the most professional way. You can be the bull at any position you're doing, and it's just telling yourself, I'm going to do this better than anybody else. I don't care what the job is. I don't care what you do. You be the bull at what you do. I tell everybody that no matter what your job is that you can go to work every day and separate yourself from anybody else. And it's no different than the sound guy on this set. If you pick up, you know what, this sound guy is really, really good, and he's worried about this and he's worried about that, then all of a sudden you tell somebody, you need a good sound guy this. And then they end up on this person because of a recommendation. All of a sudden, this guy's known as the best sound guy in LA because he's paying attention or she's paying attention to details that the other sound people don't. No, you know what, I hear an ambulance out there, let's cut it. You know, just the little bitty things. And I just think that it's easy to separate yourself from anybody else, no matter what your position is. If you go to work for a company and you don't go up the corporate ladder, it's your fault. It's nobody else's. You're either with the wrong company where there's no upward mobility, or you should separate yourself. Because I know one thing, if you work for me, I'm paying attention. Nothing goes unnoticed, okay? And I tell people that all the time. If you want to separate yourself, it's easy to do because somebody above you is going to notice it. Your peers are going to notice it. It is easy to separate yourself from anybody else.
One of my mom's second jobs is she worked in a purse factory. It was a factory with no air conditioning. My mom stood on her feet for 8 hours a day. And as the purses came down the assembly line, she reversed the purses and prepared them for stitching. It was a job that a lot of people didn't want. But here's what I realized that my mom understood, that sometimes you got to be willing to do the things today that others won't do so that you can have the things tomorrow that others won't have. And after 22 years of being here in this country, working all kind of odd jobs, going from opportunity to opportunity, my mom finally found her golden opportunity. She always wanted to become an entrepreneur, and she saw a freestanding building, and she said that would be a perfect place for me to open up my restaurant. And so my mom strikes up a lease agreement with the owner, and then she opens up her restaurant. She makes it through the first year of business. She's in her second year. She's actually starting to have a profit. And one Saturday, she's at home minding her own business, and out of nowhere, she gets a knock on the door. When my mom opens up the door, the gentleman on the other end, he hands my mom these legal documents. When my mom gets the legal documents, she starts flipping through the pages, and then she realizes that the property is going to foreclosure. But my mom can't understand why, because she's been paying the landlord every single month on time. And so my mom has a strong accent, and she picks up the phone and she calls them up. And she goes, "Hello? Oui, this is Marie. Yes, I received the papers in the mail. It says that the property is going to foreclosure. But I don't understand. Every month I pay the landlord on time. Every month I pay him. I don't understand why the property is going to foreclosure." The lady on the line could tell that my mom sincerely did not understand what was going on. She said, "Oh, Marie, even though you've been paying the landlord money every single month on time, the landlord has a mortgage. The mortgage is attached to the property. Because of that, the bank has the right to foreclose. And so, ma'am, the property is going to go to foreclosure." And so my mom asked her, "Do you think that maybe I can go to the foreclosure sale? Whoever buys the property, I will be a good tenant for them. I will stay in the property. I will pay them the rent. Please, do you think that they will let me stay? And you know what the lady told my mom? She said, ma'am, it's not even worth you showing up. Whoever buys that property is not going to want to keep your little restaurant in there. And so my mom was devastated. She's like, this is how I take care of my two boys. I got all my life savings into this property. And so about 2 weeks later, my mom says, you know what? I know that sometimes you don't just have to listen to what people tell you. There's some people that are going to try to talk you out of your dream. They're going to tell you don't even show up. But my mom said, at a minimum, I'm going to at least try to show up and see if I can convince whatever big-time real estate investor, if there's any way that they'll let me stay in the property. Sometimes people are going to try to talk you out of your dream. And you got to look them right in the eye and say, hey, that's okay. I'm just going to keep showing up. And so 2 weeks later, my mom shows up to the foreclosure sale. She's expecting a room full of investors. But to her surprise, there's only two people there. The auctioneer and the representative from the bank. Now, before my mom could realize what's going on, the auctioneer steps up to the podium and says, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start the bidding process on 540 West Atlantic Avenue. If you're here to bid on the property, please raise your hand. And so naturally, the representative from the bank is standing over here. She raises her hand. My mom, who had no intentions on bidding on the property, doesn't even know how this thing works. My mom decided to take an act of faith and raise her hand. Martin Luther King said that faith is taking the first step, even when you can't see the entire staircase. The auctioneer said, very well, we're going to start the bidding process at $30,000. Can I get a $30,000? The representative from the bank is standing here, says $30,000. My mom, calm, collect, doesn't even know how this works, goes $35,000. It gets over here to the bankers. That banker says $36,000. My mom's still in the game, $37,000. This goes on and on. Now they're in the 40s. Now they're in the 50s. Now they're in the 60s. Now they're in the 70s. It gets over here to the banker. That banker says $74,000. My mom's still in the game. No money. $75,000. Gets over here to the banker. That banker says $76,000. Now my mom's like, I might as well have some fun. I don't have any money anyway. We must be playing with some Monopoly money. And so my mom, attitude and all, my mom goes, $76,500. But this time something happens. The representative from the bank is standing here with a clip pad. She picks up the clip pad and she says nothing. The auctioneer's got to keep the process going. He goes $76,500 going once, no answer. He goes $76,500 going twice, no answer. He goes $76,500 sold to who? My mom, the woman who had no intentions on bidding on the property. And so my mom is excited she won the bid. And then she's like, wait a second, I actually have to have the money. And so they told her, you got 30 days to come up with the money. And so my mom would go home. She'd pull out a notepad and she'd start writing down the names of all of her friends and all of her family members, one by one. And she would call them up and tell them the story. Some would lend her 1,000. Some would lend her 2,000. Some would lend her 3,000. Some lend her 4,000. Some lend her 5,000. And she's 3 days away. And she's still $30,000 short. And my mom's thinking, maybe this isn't meant to be. I put everything that I have into this dream. And then her telephone rings. And it's her friend Yvonne's. And when her friend calls her up, my mom says, Yvonne, no, it's too late. I have 3 days. I still need $30,000. Yvonne said, no, Marie, listen. I know you've been calling us. But me and my husband, we've been saving up money to buy a house. We heard you call us. We heard the voicemails. Right now, we've saved up $30,000. We prayed about it. We talked about it. And we want to lend you the $30,000. All my mom could say was thank you. And so my mom said thank you. Now, how many of you know my mom ran and got that money before Evos changed her mind, right? So my mom would go and get the money from Evos and all of her friends and all of her family members. And she would drive over to the bank and get a cashier's check. She would get back in the car, drive up to Palm Beach, look at that big, thick cashier's window with the little hole at the bottom. My mom would probably take that cashier's check and slide it through the little hole. And that day, my mom went from being the tenant to being the landlord, all because she was willing to show up. And so here's what I say to you. There are going to be times that you're going to be wondering, why should I keep showing up and working my business? Why should I keep at it? Why should I keep fighting for my goals and fighting for my dreams? And what I want to remind you is that you got to show up for your life regardless of the circumstances. You got to show up in spite of the naysayers. You got to show up in spite of the conversation going on in your mind. You got to show up for your life. Because if you don't, nobody else will.